2019 is almost here, so yeah, if you're from the future and you're already watching this video in 2019 or 2020, leave a like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. But even if you're from the present, you should still subscribe, like, and hit the bell icon, but you're probably watching this video because you're interested in the 2019 iPhones. So welcome back to my Leaks and Rumors series. I'm Daniel, and here's all the latest leaks and rumors, all the details in terms of the 2019 iPhones. So I made a previous episode back in early November, and I got so much stuff that I want to cover in this one. So yeah, popcorn, drinks, and enjoy. Okay, so first of all, we know that the 2019 iPhones would actually come in 3 models, and they would have the exact same display sizes as the 2018 ones. Ming-Chi reported that we would have a brand new 6.5-inch OLED model, a brand new 5.8-inch OLED model, as well as a brand new 6.1-inch LCD model. So essentially updates to the iPhone XS Max, the iPhone XS, and the iPhone XR. And design-wise, these new iPhones would look pretty much identical, almost identical to the 2018 ones, apart from 3 changes, 3 things. So the first one would actually be something that you might not think about, and that's the thickness. So you see, every single iPhone since the original one that launched in 2007, every single year, Apple made the iPhones thinner and thinner, up until the iPhone 6. The iPhone 6, which launched back in 2014, was actually the thinnest iPhone that Apple has ever made, measuring in at 6.9 millimeters thin. But then with the iPhone 6s, Apple made it thicker at 7.1 millimeters to add some structural integrity to the aluminum frame after, the famous Bendgate incident. Plus 3D Touch was also added, which as well made the iPhone thicker. The iPhone 7 had the same thickness, but then the iPhone 8 got thicker, the iPhone 10 was even thicker, and now the iPhone XR measures in at 8.3 millimeters thick, which is actually Apple's thickest iPhone ever since the iPhone 4S in 2011. Fun fact. Now, Apple had a good reason for doing this. People complained that the battery life in the iPhones wasn't great, and, it's still not great. It depends on what model you get. But by making the phones thicker, Apple managed to increase the battery size and therefore make the iPhones last longer. For example, the iPhone XR, even though, like I said, it is the thickest iPhone since the 2011 iPhone 4S, it's actually the iPhone with the best battery life that Apple has ever released. And some people like this, some don't. I actually do. I would take a thicker phone with a better battery life like any time of the day, but we're at a point where the iPhone XR, for example, is noticeably thick. Like, you can immediately tell that this is a fat phone, a thick boy, whenever you hold it in your hand. But luckily, a brand new report coming from ET News Taiwan claims that the 2019 iPhones could actually be getting not just thinner, but also lighter due to Samsung developing a brand new OLED display tech called YOCTA, which basically integrates the digitizer into the actual display panel itself. Now, at the moment, the digitizer or the touch panel, the display itself, and the glass are actually laminated, so there's no air gap in between, but having the digitizer and the display as just one single functioning panel means that the display assembly could actually be thinner overall, which will result in the smartphone itself being thinner. This would especially be evident with LCD panels, so the iPhone 11R should be getting thinner by around 0.2 to 0.3 millimeters or so compared to the iPhone XR from 2017. The second change would be in terms of the notch. So the notch remained the exact same size from the iPhone 10 to the iPhone XS, but this could finally be made smaller and thinner with the 2019 iPhones. And then according to Ming-Chi Kuo, again, one of the most reliable sources when it comes to Apple leaks, Apple is already working on the 2nd generation flood illuminator, which would not only improve Face ID by lowering the amount of infrared light that the camera receives from the environment, but it would also be smaller and therefore reduce the size of the notch. And as a bonus result, the size of the frame surrounding the phone would also be thinner. Again, this would have a bigger impact on the iPhone 11R than the regular 11 and 11 Max, because even right now, the iPhone XS and the iPhone XS Max have a very thin bezel or border around the phone when compared to the iPhone XR, which has a very thick and noticeable frame. I mean, the side bezels, for example, on the iPhone XR are even thicker than on the previous generation Plus models of the iPhones. Speaking of Face ID 2.0, not a sponsor, however, something quite interesting surfaced just a few days ago. So Apple has applied for a brand new patent in Europe where they showed how a future iPhone could use not just Face ID, but also Touch ID at the same time, most likely integrated into the display panel, Touch ID, in order to unlock faster and also more accurate. This is a bit strange. Actually, it's really strange because even Phil Schiller himself said that Face ID is the future and that Apple would not be going back to Touch ID. And I have to say, even from my own personal use, I would take Face ID over Touch ID any time of the day. It's not as fast as Touch ID, so it is a bit slower, but only by 0.5 seconds or so, but it does work pretty much every single time. With Touch ID, if I had some dust on my finger, or my finger was a bit wet, Touch ID would not let me unlock my phone, and I ended up using the passcode quite a number of times. Now with Face ID, I don't even remember the last time that I had to use the passcode because it just works pretty much every single time. But I can definitely see how having Touch ID as well as Face ID can actually be a great idea. So with Face ID, you still have to swipe up on the phone, to unlock it. So if Touch ID was built into the display panel as well, then it would read your fingerprint as soon as you touch the display to, slide it up, unlock the phone. And if for some reason Face ID didn't work, then Touch ID would take over and unlock the phone. It's a much better approach than having a half-baked Face ID with a fingerprint reader on the back, like most Android phones are doing today. Luckily, the OnePlus 6T, for example, is not one of those phones. But Ming-Chi has also said that Apple would not be bringing back Touch ID in the 2019 iPhones. So whenever this patent happens, if it happens, it won't be in 2019. And finally, the third design change would actually be on the back, with Apple adopting a triple lens camera module in 2019. Now, we don't really know as of yet what this third module would be used for. But I have two use case scenarios that I think that Apple would be doing. So the first one is that Apple could implement this as a monochrome sensor, so similar to what we have on the Huawei P20 Pro, and in that case it would improve low light photography by quite a bit. Or the second use case scenario is that they could be using a wide angle lens like we have on the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. Now personally I think that low light can actually be improved by a ton in post through software. So take a look at what Google does with the Pixel 3 XL with night sight. Night sight mode on the Pixel 3 is just incredible. And keep in mind that the camera on the Pixel 3 XL only has an f1.8 aperture, so smaller than the f1.5 that we have on the S9 or the Note 9, for example. And then the sensor size is actually the same on both, so it's 1/2.55 inches in size on both the Pixel 3 XL and the Note 9, yet the Pixel 3 takes significantly better shots in low light than the Note 9 does, and that's just because of Google's processing and machine learning that they added to night sight. So if Apple manages to achieve something similar through software, then a wide-angle lens would actually be the best choice for a third module. This is something that the upcoming Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, for example, would be introducing. By the way, Galaxy S10 video, latest leaks and rumors here, in case you're interested in that. And then one more report coming from the Fast Company confirms that Apple would not be introducing 5G with the 2019 iPhones and that it would only be coming in 2020. Now, as some of you might know, Qualcomm's Snapdragon 855, which was actually recently announced, is the company's first processor with a 5G modem. So all the 2019 smartphones that come with a Snapdragon 855 built in would be capable of 5G speeds, which are, by the way, up to 10 gigabits per second. That's insane. That's 10 times higher than what 4G can do. The highest theoretical speed for 4G is 1 gigabit per second. Now, in terms of 4G, most carriers actually cap it at about 100 megabits per second for 4G, which is about 10 times, basically 10 times lower than the highest theoretical speed that 4G can do. So if we apply the same logic to 5G, then we can realistically achieve speeds of up to 1 gigabit per second, which is insane. I mean, this is faster, significantly faster than most of your, broadband at home. So yeah, 5G is way bigger than most people think. Game streaming in 4K on any device would actually be possible, and more about that in this video. PlayStation 5 2019 leaks and rumors, everything you need to know about the PS5 in that video. But yeah, apparently Apple wants to test out 5G, the 5G waters first before, implementing 5G in their smartphones. So they won't have any 5G capable devices in 2019. And then in 2020, they would be using Intel's 8161 modem chip, which would actually be based on a 10nm process. Now, Fast Company also reported that Apple's currently testing 5G already internally in some early prototype units of upcoming smartphones, upcoming iPhones, and possibly even iPads. And that at the moment, they're actually using Intel's 8060 chip. But the 8061, that would be the one that Apple would be using in the 2020 iPhones. And then E-Times reported that Apple would still be using TSMC in 2019 for manufacturing the Apple A13 processor, which would be found in the 2019 iPhones and the 2019 iPad Pros. The Apple A12 and especially the A12X found in the 2018 iPad Pros are some insanely powerful processors. They're by far the most powerful mobile processor on the market right now, and the A12X, for example, is very close in performance to even the 2018 Intel Core i9 6-core MacBook Pros 15-inch. That's insane. Also keep in mind that the Apple A12 is a fanless processor, while the i9, Intel's i9, requires a ton of cooling. So that's insane. And the A13 is going to be even more powerful than that. Now, it won't be based on a 5nm process just yet, so E-Times reported that the Apple A13 would be a talk cycle to the A12. So it would be a 7nm plus chip, while the 2020 A14 processor would be based on a 5nm process. So TSMC has already invested over $20 billion in manufacturing the 5nm process chips. And lots of people are actually crediting Apple alone for their Apple A processors, but Apple's only designing the architecture. TSMC is the the one manufacturing that. So without TSMC's manufacturing of a 7nm process, Apple's chips would not be possible. And at the moment, TSMC has way more advanced manufacturing than Samsung, Qualcomm, AMD, as well as Intel. So yeah, props to TSMC for making all this possible. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on the 2019 iPhones? Also, what are your thoughts on Apple using something like an Apple A13 processor and basically achieving way better performance than probably on something than your own laptop? So that's insane. Yes, Apple would be releasing a 2020 A series MacBook. So yeah, really excited and looking forward to that. Just subscribe to notifications if you're new to the channel and you want to see more videos like this one, tap the bell icon. And also guys, join the zone if you like the channel, like the video, support the channel by becoming a member, and you also get access to some pretty cool exclusive features such as badges that actually evolve over time the more you've been a member for. And you also get access to priority comments in the live stream, so it's easier for me to read your comments in the live stream. The next live stream, by the way, is coming out in early January because, you know, no one would be watching on the 31st of December, probably. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'm Daniel. If you like, if you enjoyed it, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Enough Tech, signing out. Cheers.